We finally got to a point, and very, very pleased with where we got with Medtronic, where we have a win-win outcome. And I think it's a very good start to a relationship that could be very fruitful and productive, not only for our patients, of course, and physicians, but certainly our shareholders. But it is very much a partnership. It's an equity stake. It's no other way that it's an operational stake or anything like that. And it was negotiated with that in mind.
Welcome back inside our proactive newsroom, and joining me now is Wayne Paterson. He's the CEO of Anteris Technologies. And Wayne, it's great to see you again. How are you?
Doing well, Steve. Great to see you as well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, lots of stuff to talk about. It's a very busy couple of days news-wise. First off, you've announced a $200 million public offering. This will help you fund your clinical growth. We'll talk about that in a second. But first, this is obviously a good time to be out raising money for what you're trying to do, Wayne.
Yeah, well, I think in general, I think the markets are, as we know, a little bit erratic here in the States and certainly healthcare. But obviously, this is a major deal in terms of where medtech has come to this year and even last year. So we're kind of at a point in our life cycle as well where many of these funds have known us for many years, even if they were not ready to jump into the company. I mean, dedicated healthcare funds, big dedicated healthcare funds with specialized expertise in the knowledge. They can read the data. They know what this product is. And I think as we started our pivotal study, we got approval for that in November. First patients were enrolled globally. Obviously, that shifts the risk profile to be less risky. In terms of where we are as a company, we very much focused on de-risking the pivotal study because of the big number of patients we did beforehand at 130. And so I think a lot of these funds also look at that and say, okay, now is probably the right time to get into the company.
Yeah. You've also announced part of that a private placement with Medtronic PLC. So you're obviously getting some support just outside of the average investor.
Yeah, look, that's a very deliberate strategy. Again, I think I've been very public with the markets that we have been interacting for many, many years with the strategics, the big companies, not only in TAVR, but the big companies in medtech. And we do that in a number of ways at senior executive level, myself and some of my team, certainly with physicians and physicians we work with who work across a lot of these companies. And there have been many iterations of different deal structures coming through from several of these strategics along the way. I didn't love any of them, to be honest, as we moved forward. They were just not necessarily great for our shareholders. If not, they were good for the other side shareholders. And I think we finally got to a point, and very, very pleased with where we got with Medtronic, where we have a win-win outcome. And I think it's a very good start to a relationship that could be very fruitful and productive, not only for our patients, of course, and physicians, but certainly our shareholders. But it is very much a partnership. It's an equity stake. It's no other way that it's an operational stake or anything like that. And it was negotiated with that in mind. We bring and have a lot of expertise and have a very deep knowledge. We have a lot of deep commercial healthcare knowledge over 30 years amongst my team. And so the journey of our product is not randomly and magically looking like it does in its superiority because the folks here didn't kind of know what they were doing. And I think everyone understands that. It is a major player in TAVR, but I'm very happy with Medtronic as a partner. I think they share our sense of medical ethics and values, and certainly they share our view on transparency in clinical data. And so these things are really important to us as well. When we looked at partnerships, we frankly have a choice with this product, and they would certainly be partner of choice as we move forward for those reasons.
You mentioned earlier about this, a lot of this capital will be on getting that to a certain stage and eventually going to get it to commercialize. But you also have manufacturing to think about as well. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that this kind of capital will be able to help the company move forward in a quick pace.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Steve. I mean, we literally wrote the commercial and go-to-market plan 8 years ago as we were writing the target product profile for this product from a blank piece of paper. So you have to build that infrastructure. And the whole purpose of doing that was to make sure that we didn't have to sell the company, that we could launch the product. And part of that was setting up manufacturing. Of course, we have a factory in Australia. We have also a manufacturing facility here in Minneapolis where we make the valves. Tissue is processed down under as well as up here. And so we've got enough footprint, the way we've set it up from a modular perspective, to take us into 2 years post-commercial. And that hasn't changed. Now, one thing that has changed, obviously, is we're putting in capital now that will amount to about $300 million. And that'll certainly take us right through the pivotal and the follow-up into the submission point. So that obviously is critically important. There's no more deals. People will have to buy a market as we go through these different milestones. The second point is it doesn't change how we budgeted just because obviously the money came in. We had a very lean forecast. We've had to shareholders have their view, particularly some of the retailers, but the institutions understand that this is a very lean operation to achieve what we have, which is obviously a multi-billion-dollar product in this space. Some of the things we did discuss with Medtronic along the way here beyond the equity stake, and these are just placeholders. I should be very clear on that at the moment. Is the potential to use some of their capacity, non-dilutive, I'm talking about here, in manufacturing and other things like that. So there are some synergies that may be very beneficial that could even have a balance sheet impact in a positive way as we move forward. And they are in the public documents as placeholders. We haven't expanded those discussions a lot yet, but those are things that I would look to. I've done kind of deals like that in pharma before, which is my previous life. Co-commercializations, particularly amongst big pharma. So there's a lot of structures that are not necessarily common to medtech that are common in pharma that we would maybe look to be amongst the first companies, Medtronic and Anteris, to do very different things from a strategic point of view to maximize the value of the product for both parties.
Okay. I also wanted to ask you why I had you on. I know I was reading you had some recent clinical data that you shared, and it was quite interesting data. So I thought it'd be a great opportunity to get you to sort of recap a little bit about what was said.
Yeah. So I think you're referring to London Valve, and I think
Yeah.
it becomes very clear that Duravar being the first new design product to a valve in 2 decades, uh, because we had that blank piece of paper, because we're able to look retrospectively at the gaps in the market, the clinical gaps, uh, and attempt to build a product that would fit that gap based on physician feedback. And of course, that was a go, no go gating item for the company as well. If we couldn't achieve clinical superiority, we couldn't make the company investable because we couldn't sell a me too. So there's no randomness about this. Everything was very deliberate from the clinical side. Now, what we presented at London Valve is just an extension of things that we didn't necessarily know a few years back that has evolved because of the design of this product being so radically different, obviously to patients' benefit. Now, one of those was PPM, patient prosthetic mismatch, which is typically the bane of the physician's life with TAVR. It's up there with things like PVL and things that have been around since TAVR was invented. And you have to accept that there's now an alternative. So for example, at London Valve, we showed that Duravar has about a 3% ppm rate versus about a 30% ppm rate to the market leader. That is an order of magnitude, obviously, and it's a significant benefit to patients. ppm is also linked to mortality and other things as well as valve durability. And it's just been a standard part of the SAPIEN platform for many years. But now there's an alternative. So data like that is not insignificant. It's really important. And that goes on the back of the laminar flow and the left ventricular remodeling data that we continue to present. Now, what's also important is during this year, 2026, we now have 130 patients who are not in the pivotal study. Of course, that's already started. So we've got patient cohorts that continue to evolve and roll through and have that data presented. Our longest cohort now is nearly 5 years. So we've got some good long-term data. We've got good follow-up data. Things like PPM obviously is coming from those cohorts. So during 26 at the podiums, and of course now with this partnership that was announced, we're obviously being asked to really get that data out there. And so there's a lot of big data points that will come through this year, and they are significant and very much differentiated to what's in the market today.
All right. We'll look forward to hearing more about that. Wayne, thank you so much. Great update on a number of different fronts and really appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Steve.
All right. There's Wayne Paterson, the CEO of Anteris Technologies.